Hey guys, it's Zinno coming up on A to Z. Why accountability matters. Also, why this SEC championship is personal for Georgia. And don't look now, Hawks fans. Could get ugly.
This is A to Z with Mark Zinno, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta.
How did we get here? If you're not the number one pick, guess what? You have no guarantee. That's where you are.
And it starts.
Does that make me a genius? Yes.
Now.
Good afternoon. Welcome to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, where today I tell you accountability matters. Welcome in. We are live here on this Tuesday. Appreciate you guys joining us. Give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On ATL. Of course, I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give a thumbs up and a like to all the content there as well. And we're on Roku TV. However you get your however you get your Roku TV on your Amazon Fire Stick, wherever you get it, download that Roku TV app and check out all the shows for Locked On Sports Atlanta. All right, we've got a lot to get to today here, so let's get right to it. You know, I was out at Flower Branch yesterday and had a chance to ask Arthur Smith about the ending of the game against the Washington Commanders and the way things went down. And you know, I put this out on Twitter yesterday, but so if you didn't see it, I'll bring some light to it again. But here's the thing. You know, it was interesting because Arthur Smith had addressed it on Sunday after the game. And a lot of people didn't like his response about you can't get emotional, this, that, and the other. And you know, I asked him yesterday with the benefit of the tape and a little bit of clarity, does he wish he had run the ball in that spot? Because a lot of Falcons fans are screaming that he should have run the ball. And while I can't necessarily disagree with you, you know, I think there's a certain measure of you have to understand that Arthur Smith is a very thoughtful, methodical, deliberate head coach. And he is a guy that hoards information and uses it to his benefit. I mean, yes, the Falcons had run for 165 yards in the game. They were gashing a Washington Commanders defensive front that is one of the best in the league at stopping the run, and yet they chose to pass. I get all those things obviously on the surface, but Arthur Smith did a couple things yesterday I thought were really important. One, he addressed the clock management issue because there was over a minute left, and he turned around and he said, well, look, if I run the ball there and I score, I'm still facing the same issue, which is there's a minute left. That's a lot of time for them to go down the field and kick a field goal, right? Which is what we all agree. And part of running the ball is that if you don't get it, well, at least the Commanders had used all three of their timeouts. At least you'll kill some of the clock. Arthur Smith noted, I can't think about the clock in that spot. I have to score a touchdown. And he's right. If you're down by 2 or a field goal to tie it or whatever, okay, that's a different conversation. But he needed all 6 of those points and an extra point to win the game. So first and foremost, he was right. You need to score the touchdown. Okay? And I think that's the priority. The number one priority is accurate there. I don't think his priorities were out of order by any stretch of the imagination. So, with that said, whether you're running or pass, scoring on that play leaves a lot of time. I think that's fair. The other thing is that Arthur Smith is a constant, guy who's trying to stay one step ahead of the defense. And I don't think Arthur Smith is one of those coaches who outthinks himself. I haven't seen that yet, especially not this year. I don't think Arthur Smith goes, watch this. They'll never expect this. I'm going to try this, double reverse flea flicker. And that's not what Arthur Smith did there. What Arthur Smith did was he realized that the Washington Commanders were presenting a certain front in short yardage situations, including the one on the play before that Washington was being effective at or felt they were being effective at. Why? Because they kept going to it, right? Like flip the other side. Defensively, Washington wouldn't have kept doing the same thing defensively if they didn't think it was successful and going to work, or if they could, but that's really bad coaching. So Arthur Smith was getting a look that he knew he could take advantage of by running a certain play, and that's what he did. And again, if you look at it, Arthur Smith said it yesterday. I think other people in the media said it. CP, Cordero Patterson, was open. Drake London was wide open. Marcus Mariota had 2 guys right there that he could have easily gotten the ball to, and it would have been a touchdown. Deron Payne made a play. And the most important thing that Arthur Smith said yesterday was, I'm willing to live with the results. That's accountability, and that's important. Arthur Smith didn't get out there and beat his chest and go, I'd make the call again. I am right. You are wrong. I know how to coach this team. You don't. Or when you coach your own team, you run this play and I'll run it. He wasn't braggadocious. He wasn't boastful. He was very straightforward in saying, I got a look that I want. And I tried to take advantage of it. They made a play. It was there. That play, 8 times out of 10, gets executed for a touchdown. If Washington runs the same defense, 8 times out of 10, that play ends up being a touchdown. 2 times out of 10, it gets deflected. It happened to get deflected. The defense gets to say, as a coach, you're okay with that. The guy made a play. I'm not blaming Marcus Mariota for throwing a bad ball. I'm not saying that you know anything from an execution standpoint went wrong. The guy made a play. And guess what? Sometimes that's enough. Like, that's all you can really do. I thought Arthur Smith was smart yesterday. He requited himself well. He absolutely took accountability and responsibility for the team's loss. And oh, by the way, even though last year, overall, the Falcons were 7-2 and won and score games, and this year they're 4-5, they're actually better this year. And he's right about that. Because last year, the Falcons got blown out in 8 games. Blown out. This year, they've played 3 games that were decided by more than one score. They won one against San Francisco, and they lost 2, one of them including the Panthers game that was 10 points that a late field goal made it 10. That it was a one-score game the whole game. The only game they really haven't been in this year is Cincinnati. They've been in every single other game. You could argue they weren't in the first Bucs game. I mean, they got in it late, made it a one-score game, but, for 3 quarters, they were pretty much dominated. So, I mean, there is improvement across the board with this team. And I'll say what I said yesterday to you guys. Stop moving the goalposts on this season. Why are you doing that to yourself? You're only going to get yourself angry and frustrated. It literally makes no sense. 100%, you absolutely should be making sure that this team, you remind yourself that this team is in a rebuild. It's that simple. I'm not sure why you want to move the goalposts on this because they're close to getting it. If they get a division title, great. They go to the playoffs, great. I mean, there's a fine line between, like I said, trying to take advantage of going for the playoffs and just understanding you're in a rebuild. I wanted them to be aggressive at the deadline. Why? Because the talent you could acquire now would make you better down the road in your rebuild. I think that's fair. But I'm not going to be upset about a loss that, frankly, nobody did anything wrong. The other team just made a play and won the game. I'm not going to get upset about that. I don't think you should either. Genuinely don't think you should. But who am I to tell you guys how to feel? All right, I want to remind you guys before we get to Georgia here that betonline.net, fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find your favorite sports and events at the number one online source for odds, lines, and games. We saw Pittsburgh Steelers last night come up with an outright winner. If you follow me on Twitter, you saw I gave that out yesterday. You can find news and reviews of every league, NFL, college football, big championship weekend coming up in college. Make sure you read all the columns I got there. NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, even golf. It's all right there. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. Guys want to learn how to in-game bet and what to do? BetOnline.net has you covered. They've also got podcasts there for you. So much sports information. Check out the podcast. They really can help you out and make you a smarter, better along the way. Head to BetOnline today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the action that's happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Before we get to Georgia here, reminder about listening to Locked On Falcons with Aaron Freeman. He's great. His show is great. Make sure you check it out every day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. Biggest stories of the day, plus instant reaction, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Georgia going to take on LSU in the SEC title game this week. Kind of crazy to think for all the success that Georgia has had, they've only won one SEC title under Kirby Smart. Kind of crazy, right? Going for their second here. And it's interesting because there are a couple of players left from that 2019 SEC championship matchup between Georgia and LSU. LSU romped them in the game. They go on to win the national title. And Georgia players remember that. And I think that's important when it comes to this weekend and the SEC title game. I think it's really a motivational factor for a lot of these guys, as it should be. And why not? I mean, Georgia and Kirby Smart want to continue to add to this dynasty that they're building. You know, if they drop this game, and I don't think they will, if they drop this game, it certainly can call into question the sort of invincibility that Georgia has presented over the last, I don't know, 24 months. I mean, in reality, Georgia can start to put together a very Bama-like run when it comes to, now you're talking about if they run the table here and win this thing, and I mean the national championship, that is, that's one loss over the course of 2 years. Very Alabama-like. And now you start a season next year where, again, you have a sort of mediocre SEC East. You have a chance to kind of run this whole thing back again. Lord knows you'll have to make a change at quarterback at some point in time. But Georgia's cupboard is not empty by any stretch of the imagination. And so while Georgia doesn't necessarily need this game to go out there and secure a spot in the college football playoff, I think we all know that's kind of like locked up already. I think it's important that these guys want to win this thing. I mean, quoted in the AJC, senior safety Christopher Smith, remember the 27-point beatdown they got when Joe Burrow passed for 350 and 4 touchdowns. They're young guys want to win conference titles, right? He said, quote, "It definitely means a lot to me. It's definitely one of our team goals to be able to win the SEC. Playing this game 3 times, haven't been able to win. So hopefully 4 times a charm." Yeah, I mean, again, that bothers college players for some reason. They just want to go. They want to win a conference championship. And for all that they have in front of them, they don't want to drop this one again. So Georgia beat Auburn 28-7 in 2017. They lose to Bama, they lose to LSU, and they lose to Bama again over the course of the next 3 years. Kind of crazy to think. Kind of crazy to think overall. But, again, Georgia going into this game here, they would absolutely continue to assert how much better they are than the rest of college football by going out and winning this game. So I absolutely think it matters. I absolutely think it matters. And I'm not sure why any Georgia fan would be like, who cares? Let's just get in the playoff and win the thing. No, I think you want to win the whole darn thing, the whole shebang. College football playoff ranking is going to come out tonight. I don't think, here's a couple of things that I think would be interesting to see, because I don't think you're going to see anything different what the AP poll represents, which is Georgia, Michigan, TCU, USC, Ohio State, and Bama. Now, we've talked about this a little bit yesterday, and here is one thing that I think is worth noting. Georgia, Michigan, 1 and 2. If both TCU and USC falter, and I think it's absolutely possible. Why? Because USC played Utah. Utah already won that game. And TCU is playing K-State. K-State held an 11-point lead at halftime in that game and somehow couldn't score a single point the rest of the game. Don't think that's happening again. So both of these teams can be beat. Now, if Ohio State and Alabama, respectively, are the benefactors of 2 losses by both or a loss each by TCU and USC, I think it's fair to say that they both would just slide up and in. But here's the rub. That if you do that and you keep Ohio State above Bama at 5 and 6 right now, respectively, theoretically, they would both just slide into 3 and 4. But that would set up a rematch in the semifinal of Ohio State, Michigan. And I'm not sure that the committee wants that, because we've seen the committee go out of their way on several occasions to make sure Georgia and Alabama didn't play each other again, except if it was for a national title. Now, could you justify the idea that Alabama could be over Ohio State? Sure, I think you could. But if you put Alabama at 5 and Ohio State at 6, here's the real problem. That if only one of TCU or USC loses, that means that Alabama would slide in over Ohio State as the last college football playoff team. And Can you justify that being that Ohio State was 11-1 and Alabama is 10-2? I think you'd get a little pushback from fans in saying, yeah, well, uh, we're going to put Ohio State in, even though we ranked them sixth and Alabama fifth, if only one of those two teams loses without either one of those teams playing a game this weekend. So you run into trouble because I think they want to avoid Georgia, Alabama, or Michigan, Ohio State in the semifinal. I think they want to make sure that those two teams play each other for a national championship. And oh, by the way, I said it before and I'll say it again. If Michigan and Ohio State end up playing for a national championship, that would be the most bonkers national championship ever. I'm here for it. Hope it happens because I think it's great drama and great excitement. And talk about the ultimate, and I mean the ultimate feather in your cap and the best rivalry in college football outside of Army Navy. Um, yeah, that would be insane. Completely insane. Speaking of insane, you know what's insane, guys? Built bars. Had them, love them, told you about them. Built Bar Puffs. If you haven't tried these things, you're missing out on one of life's greatest joys. They are absolutely fantastic, and they come in a brand new flavor: cookie dough chunk with real chunks of cookie dough in it. Here's the best part about Built Bars: they're covered in 100% real chocolate, but they're only 160 calories, and they get a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. This is the perfect snack for you on the go, in between meals, late at night when you want something sweet. I mean, it checks every block that you want. It's delicious. It's healthy for you. It won't fill you up. I mean, it is one of these things where uh, they just fit every aspect of your life. Go to built.com, get a box for yourself. Try them out. Cookie dough chunk, amazing new flavor. Take the box, stash it in your office drawer, hide it from the kids if you want, share it with the whole family, whatever. It's the best thing you can do for your health and your taste buds. Go to built.com right now. Use the promo code locked on 15 and get 15% off your first order. Again, built.com and use the promo code locked on 15. Before we get to the Atlanta Hawks here, because it's interesting, we have a couple of notes to get to on where they are right now. It is time for us to do that thing that we do every day, and that's called a shovel of wisdom.
Brace yourselves, because it's time for the shovel of wisdom.
Yeah, you know how we do it every day. We have to reward somebody for saying or doing something stupid, and we do so right here with a shovel of wisdom. You can hand one out of your own on my Twitter account at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Just use the hashtag shovel of wisdom. And today, my shovel goes to Jeff Saturday. Jeff Saturday, the new interim coach of the Indianapolis Colts, last night gave you a class on how not to manage the final 2 minutes of a game. So here's the situation. If you didn't watch the game, the Steelers were up 24-17. Colts had the ball, trailing by 7. They were facing a 4th and 3 at the Pittsburgh 37-yard line after the 2-minute warning. After converting on 4th and 3, Indianapolis quarterback Matt Ryan was sacked for a 7-yard loss on first down, then scrambled for 14 yards on second down. The second down play was snapped with 59 seconds remaining. Jeff Saturday didn't use a timeout. He had all three of them. They used a slow approach. They hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor, stop the no game on third and 3. And then the Colts finally called a timeout with 30 seconds left. He basically wasted about 40 seconds by not calling a timeout. And then said after the game, quote, didn't feel like time was really of the essence at the moment. Hey, stupid. I have to remind this. I say this every week. Somebody needs to tell these head coaches that timeouts are not redeemable for cash. You don't get something by holding on to them. Use them. Use all of them. Every game, every half, every opportunity. The hell are you hanging on to timeouts for? Hell, I'd call timeout just to give my guys a mental break. Like, there's literally no reason at this point in time not to be using timeouts. It's just nuts. Like, it's crazy. And to mismanage the end of the game, when, yes, time is of the essence, you're down by 7 and you have to go the length of the field. Come on, man. Like Jeff Saturday, you can't be that dumb. A better answer would have been like, well, I'm new at this, guys. I'm just trying to figure things out yet. I don't really have every nuance of the job worked out. Like, I would have actually accepted that answer more than the one that he gave. that time wasn't of the essence. You sound ridiculous and you look ridiculous because it is ridiculous for you to say something like that. Completely, completely asinine. Time wasn't of the essence. Huh. When the clock hits zero, the game is over. It's not baseball. You don't have an absence of a clock. The clock is important. Anyway, Atlanta Hawks. They don't play until tomorrow night. But in case you haven't noticed, after that big win against Sacramento on Thanksgiving Eve, um, see what happened was is the Hawks have lost three straight to three teams that are currently below 500 in Houston, Miami, and the Philadelphia 76ers. Here's the problem. We talked about this stretch. We've talked about it several times. Um, I'm sorry, Philadelphia's above 500. I apologize, but you get my point. Houston's like dead last and the worst team in the league. Neither here nor there. But here's the problem. They're going to face a whole bunch of more teams that are below 500 and not playing well. The Orlando Magic, Denver is really good. They'll face them, but they also get the Knicks, the Nets, Chicago. These are all teams right now that are sort of hovering around 500 and struggling a little bit. Yeah, this was the stretch where the Hawks were supposed to get fat and happy. That's what this stretch was. This was the stretch where you were supposed to take advantage of playing Orlando three times over the course of the next 3 weeks, along with Charlotte, again, the Knicks, Oklahoma City. This is where you're supposed to get fat and happy. And dropping these three games is sort of predictable from what we've seen over the last year from the Hawks is a certain level of inconsistency that you don't want. And that's really kind of what is troubling for this team right now. Um, they're at a point now where their defense is giving up more than their offense as far as points per game. Over the last three, they've given up 128, 106, and 104. And oh, by the way, finally had their streak snapped of scoring at least 100 points or 101 points in every game with the loss to Miami. Now, Miami's a really good defensive team, but still, it's like one of those deals where, hey, you should have been better. And again, after Trey had 35, Trey had to run a stretch of 27, 33, 25, 35, 44, and 23. Like what happened over the course of the next two games was kind of head scratching because Trey didn't show up at all and continues to have bad shooting nights. 4 of 16 for only 22 against the Miami Heat, including 1 of 8 from three. And then the following night when he took on Philadelphia, he only scored 18 points. So, again, Trey continues to sort of struggle at times. And again, only shooting 25% from three against the 76ers. He's only 31% from three and just 40% from the field. Those numbers are not sustainable for Trey Young, and it's something that has to get fixed, and it's got to get fixed quickly. If they don't, this team is going to continue to struggle. They might have gotten a little bit deeper on offense. They might have gotten a little bit better overall, but this is still a team that revolves around his offense. And if it's not there, then it's problematic. Go back to the game that he played against Sacramento when he had his best shooting night of the season, and really came on and began to look like he was, getting back into form, and then it all falls apart. There's a certain level of consistency that they need from Trey, this entire team offensively, if they want to continue to try to stay in the top four of the Eastern Conference. But they're playing a bad stretch of teams right now, and they need to take advantage of it. Plain and simple. All right, final thought before we get out of here for this Tuesday, and that is we got some football on today, some soccer. United States, Iran, as they say, or Iran. Iran so far away. Um, that will decide whether the U.S. goes on out of group play into the knockout round for the World Cup. I'd be lying if I told you I knew a whole bunch about U.S. soccer, international soccer. I just know they need to win. So we'll watch the game today. We'll enjoy it as best we can. Hope the United States wins and they get to continue to play. If they don't, say love you, World Cup. Ratings in America and go Happens. But nonetheless. So good luck to the United States today. Hope they pull this one out. We're all certainly wishing for the U.S. to have a good, deep, successful run. That'll do it for us today here on A to Z. Back tomorrow for a Wednesday edition. Make sure you guys follow us on YouTube, subscribe there as well, and follow us on Twitter at Locked On ATL. Want to remind you guys to make Locked On Falcons with Aaron Freeman your first listen every day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. That'll do it for us here on A to Z. You guys have a wonderful day. Don't take any crap from anybody. See ya.